welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be painting a wreath. I'm excited to use a bunch of pretty fall colors. So to start out, I'm painting just a really light circle on my page. I do this instead of pencil lines because I feel like this is hidden more than a pencil line that won't be able to be erased if I paint right over the top. So I'm gonna let that dry for just a second because I don't want my paint to kind of bleed into the circle. And then in the meantime, I'm going to mix my first color. Now, as you can see, I've got a lot of colors already on my palette. I'll link all of the colors that I have on my palette listed down below. It's on my Amazon store, and if you click on there and look for the board called What's on My Palette, all of the colors I have on there or on here are listed there. Sometimes it's hard to know exactly what colors I've mixed together because I do like to use what's already on my palette. So I know for sure that I'm adding in yellow ochre. But other than that, it's hard to know exactly. So if you're interested, check that out, and then I'll try to list all the colors that I mentioned down in the description box below. I'm also using a cold press watercolor block. This one is by Blick Premier, or it's called Blick Premier. And I'll list a similar one down below. But I just want to get my focal flowers in place first. And I'm painting roses just because they're fun. They're kind of my go-to flower when I'm painting. Let me know in the comments below if you have any go-to flowers that you like to paint. And when you sit down to paint, you just kind of naturally gravitate toward painting them. For me, that's roses. I love painting them. Now, I'm not explaining what I'm doing with roses a ton because I focused on roses with my Patreon supporters this month. So this is kind of a bonus video for them. They already know how I build my roses. If you're interested in joining me on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Snowberry Design Co. And I focus on a new flower every single month. So in November of 2019, I focused on roses and taught you how to paint them at different angles, and it was really fun. And then in December, I'm going to be focusing on holiday flowers, so poinsettias, hollyberry, that kind of thing. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then in January, I'll be doing peonies. So if you need a little extra help knowing how to paint different flowers, definitely check that out. It's a great way to learn how to paint flowers at the same time as supporting this channel. So I would be really grateful if you checked it out. All right, so now I'm adding in some fillers. Just these small 5-petal flowers. I'm not being too careful with them. And then next I want to add in some leaves. And I'm gonna be mix a pretty soft color for these. I'm gonna use Potter's Pink. It's this really translucent kind of mauve color. I think that'll be pretty with my fall color scheme I've kind of got going on. And I'm just using that circle that I painted as a guide to know kind of how to angle my flowers and leaves. And then when I introduce a new color in, I like to use that same color kind of throughout so that there's a nice balance. I want kind of a deeper color instead of that. So I'm just mixing almost a deep purple color. Using alizarin crimson, Payne's gray, and raw umber violet. I don't want the purple to overpower everything, but I do want a little bit of contrast in my wreath. Now I'm painting what looks like just little blobs. And later, hopefully, they'll start to make a little more sense when I add in some stems. So I'm just making it so that the bottom is kind of rounded and the top has these kind of petals that come up. Okay, and I'm using isoindolin yellow. I'm just going to mix that into what I've got going on already. And let's see. I don't want to touch into this paint because that will turn into a muddy mess. Purple and yellow are across from each other on the color wheel, so I know that they'll make kind of a brown if I accidentally touch them together, so I'm not even going to go there. But I knew I kind of wanted this brighter orange color. And with wreaths, you just kind of have to keep adding things in and seeing where you've got gaps. And then just keep adding things until it looks full. Now I'm just using plain raw umber violet to add in these stems. And that just kind of helped these blobs look a little bit more like flowers instead of just blobs. I'm going to add just a couple little dots to add a little more texture. Now I know that this color is quinacridone rose. Just think a pink would be really pretty in here. And I'm adding it in just by making these stems that pink color and then adding some leaves. Now at this point, it's full enough that I don't need too much more, but there are a couple little gaps here and there. I'm just going to choose a really light color. So I'm mixing in shell pink, a tiny bit of that orange that I had already. And shell pink is pretty opaque, so I'm adding a lot of water into it and then just scraping out my brush so I don't have like a puddle of paint in my brush. I kind of love when this happens, when I have those kind of little bleeds. Just helps everything blend together really pretty. Oh, I had some yellow on my brush, so that's where those little streaks came from. Now I'm going to use Opera Rose and just add in some little textures here and there. I always love a nice bright pop of color. And Opera Rose is so fun. It was actually just a couple of years ago that I bought Opera Rose. It was on Thanksgiving when I tried it out, I remember. And I just fell in love with how bright and bold it was. Now I can see I need a little something up here, but I don't want it to be super bright and bold. I'm just going to water that down a little. So that it's there, it's filling it in that space, but it's not taking over what I've already got going on. All right, and now the finishing touch is I'm going to add a little bit more depth to these roses. And some of them, they kind of blended together a little bit, so now if you wanted to, you could add some calligraphy to the center here. And I think I'm going to add just a little word here. I want to wait until my paint is a little more dry because I know it's going to be tricky to kind of write in here and try to avoid what's happening here. I'm just going to use a size 1 round brush and that kind of plum color that I mixed earlier. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more videos like this. Thanks again for watching. Bye!